for the Woodland Trust as an outreach advisor, and this is one of the sites we've been working on here in Leathley. It's a really quite large woodland creation scheme, 11.25 hectares, and we've been working on it with the landowner here, Ali, getting on for 2 years now, and we're finally getting to the stage where we're planting up.
From my own point of view as a landowner, this land was rented out for pasture land for stock, sheep and cattle. When I first thought of the idea of converting it, I was a little bit frightened that the tenant farmer would object, but actually he was all in favour of it. Because I think word has got around now that it's a good thing to have trees.
This project is quite important. It makes quite a reasonable contribution to the White Rose Forest area and the Greater Northern Forest area. The Northern Forest project is aiming to deliver 50 million trees spreading from Liverpool across the Yorkshire coast. There are a number of woodland creation scheme options in this area. The White Rose Forest have one and the Forestry Commission have one. There's many other people doing woodland creation schemes. But Ali here chose to use the Grow Back Greener funding through the Woodland Trust, and I'm really grateful that he chose to use us because this has been a fabulous scheme to work on over the last couple of years.
We agreed on nearly everything, and a nice mixture of species, more interesting features like paths, whether or not to have a deer fence or not. It all sounded very sensible to me.
We collectively, between myself and Ali, decided that we were going to try and do this scheme with as few guards as possible. You know, we didn't want the scheme covered in plastic, and that's led us down a few routes. So obviously we put in the deer fence, the rabbit netting and the raptor perches. We're hoping that will encourage in barn owls, kestrels and all the rest, and they'll manage those vol numbers in a healthy and natural way is what we hope. We had items that we wanted to do, so we wanted to protect the veteran trees on site by giving them at least a minimum of 20-metre buffer. Really, we're wanting them to encourage even more biodiversity, more wildlife, more variation into the site. We've got a badger set, and so we've had to use badger gates so that they can get in and out of the site and look at where we're putting our fence lines to best protect those badgers. We've got a large south-facing hill slope that we're leaving open, and we'll hope that'll develop into a really pleasant wild grassland, maybe some wildflowers getting in there. And hopefully that will attract reptiles and solitary bees and all sorts of lovely invertebrates that will be the base for this sort of nature-rich land that we're creating. We also had the results of our breeding bird survey that suggested that the southeast corner of this site probably should be planted with shrubs, low canopy species, so that the canopy doesn't cast a predator shadow over where the potential breeding waders habitat is.
I was always keen to make the end products look as varied and non-uniform as possible by creating these little mounds, some variation in the contour. Plus that we have an area which is probably going to fill with water. It has in the past, and that will provide another variation in terms of wet and dry.
This scheme was done with biodiversity and wildlife at its heart, at its core, and its real aim is to make improvements for that. The scheme also is going through the Woodland Trust carbon offer. Whilst we're going through that, we haven't designed the scheme specifically for carbon. It's designed for biodiversity and wildlife, and it's just an extra boon, an extra benefit that Ali is getting payments for carbon on top of what he's doing. The Grow Back Greener Fund, which is a Defra funded scheme run by the Woodland Trust, has covered the costs of this site. That means that we've paid for all of the pre-surveys that needed to be done, including the breeding bird survey. And then the scheme also covers 100% of the capital costs. We also give a payment for maintenance, which Ali will receive on completion of the capital stage, i.e. at the end of all this planting. And that will be there for him to use as he sees fit, with some advice from me, but it's there, it's flexible, and the idea is that the landowner can be reactive to what happens to the trees and what happens to the site over time. I really hope that sites like this become something we see more often. You know, people trying something different, people trying to do the best they can for biodiversity and wildlife. And if you want to do something like that, then please get in touch with us.